Jake Sully, a paralyzed Marine soldier, is sent on a mission to Pandora, a moon of a distant planet. He discovers that humans plan to destroy the humanoid creatures of Pandora, called the Na'vi, to exploit their valuable resources hidden within their forests. Jake, in his avatar identity, infiltrates the Na'vi people while also promising Colonel Courage to collaborate with the military. Hi, Studio Recapped here. Today, we're going to talk about a movie called Avatar, released in 2009 in the fantasy and sci-fi genres. Spoiler alert is on. Take care. With a look at the savage colonizers throughout history who committed the largest genocides in the world for extraction, the story begins with a disabled man named Jake Sully. Jake hates being pitied and believes there is no justice in the world. He resents bullies who pick on the weak and always tries to stop them, although sometimes he fails. The story starts when two people come to Jake and inform him of his brother Tommy's death. A week before Tommy was to be launched into space, someone shoots him. Tommy was a high-ranking scientist, and because of Jake's genes, which are very similar to his brother's, Jake is offered to accept Tommy's work contract and replace his brother. He starts his space journey with another group of scientists, and after 5 years, 9 months, and 22 days in cryosleep, they reach their destination. Their destination was the planet Pandora. Pandora's atmosphere is lethal, and a human will pass out after breathing in it for 20 seconds and die after 4 minutes. Upon Jake's arrival, everyone is surprised by the presence of such a person there. He meets another scientist named Norm. In fact, Norm and Jake were there to control the avatars, which are remotely controlled bodies made from a combination of human and native DNA. Each controller only matches with their own avatar because their nervous systems are synchronized. That's why this job was offered to Jake, because he could connect to Tommy's avatar. A female scientist named Grace, who worked on this project with Tommy, gets angry upon seeing Jake and says she doesn't need him. She needed Tommy, who had trained for 3 years for this job, but she is convinced by Parker, the head of the operation. Parker says that Jake was in the army and is a good soldier, not an ordinary person. Parker shows Grace a small piece of unobtainium rock, which is worth about $20 million per kilo. He says it's this rock that pays for this system and even your research, and the Na'vi, the natives of this planet, are savages who must be pushed aside so they don't hinder the extraction of this stone. When it's time for Jake to practice connecting with the avatar, it's the first time he experiences the connection while the others have had nearly hundreds of hours of practice. Jake, upon his first connection, becomes excited when he sees the avatar can walk and move like a healthy human, loses control, but Grace reminds him of some points. A colonel who is in charge of the operation wants to see Jake. He tells him that he has read about his record and wants him to spy for him and provide him with the information he gathers about the Na'vi during his connection to the avatar. The colonel talks about the many dangers of this mission and ultimately promises Jake that if he does his job right, he will get his legs back after the mission is over. In the next connection, Jake and the rest of the team start exploring the planet, and he learns that Grace had built a school for the Na'vi and taught them English, got quite close to them, and gained their trust, but nothing more than a ruined school remained, and Grace leaves Jake's question of why it ended up this way unanswered. As the search continues, Jake's curiosity causes trouble, and they encounter strange creatures. The first creature is tamed with Grace's guidance, and Jake realizes it only reacted because he approached its territory and wouldn't harm him if not attacked. However, when facing the second creature, there was no choice but to flee. Jake tries to escape but can't, gets attacked, and engages in a fight with it. This causes him to be separated from the rest of the team, and that's when he first encounters a girl named Neytiri. She decides to kill Jake but changes her mind when she sees sacred seeds landing on his head. When wild creatures attack Jake, she saves him and kills them all. Jake thanks her, but Neytiri angrily says that he is to blame for their deaths and only helped him because his heart is pure. Jake asks Neytiri to teach him their ways, but she refuses, saying, "You people cannot learn to see." Jake insists, And when Neytiri sees many sacred seeds settling on Jake's face and body again, she trusts him and takes him to her father, the tribe's leader. Neytiri's mother, Moat, is a religious figure who interprets the will of Awa, the god of their tribe. The tribe and its leader oppose teaching Jake their way of life, and Moat says, "We tried to teach the sky people before, but it's hard to fill a cup that's already full." Jake tells her, "I'm not a scientist. I'm a warrior." Neytiri's brother, Sully, wants to kill Jake, but his father says, "This is the first warrior we've encountered from among the night people. We must get to know him better." Moat tells her daughter, "Teach him our ways so he learns to speak and act like us, and then we'll see if Jake's insanity has been cured." The intent here is to determine if Jake's behavior resembles that of the sky people. The Na'vi sleep in trees at night, and from then on, Jake becomes more familiar with their life through Neytiri's teachings. After this connection, Jake recounts all his experiences to his team, and Grace wonders why an Omaticaya chose him. The Colonel encourages Jake to continue his espionage and find out what the blue creatures want. Parker says their village sits on the richest layer of unobtainium, extending 200 kilometers in every direction. Jake's mission is to move them away from their village. Otherwise, the Colonel will kill them all. Jake only has 3 months. In the next connection, Neytiri mentions something called Sahelu, which is actually a communication device between them and their other creatures, allowing them to tame and communicate with horses and other creatures. The Na'vi believe in feeling, understanding, and then connecting with creatures. With Neytiri's help, after several attempts, Jake learns how to tame the creatures so he can ride them. After one of the team members hears that Jake is spying and giving information to the Colonel and Parker, Grace and her team go to their connection center in Area 26 to gather some information. Grace, along with Jake and their team, connect to the avatars at the new site. Jake goes with Neytiri to continue learning and meets a creature called Ikran. Ikrans are not horses. Once tamed, they fly with only one hunter for their entire lives. Jake had to find his own Ikran to become a hunter. Jake records videos of all his information and experiences during the connection at the center and recounts every detail. Jake learns the Na'vi language and archery with difficulty and with Neytiri's help. Initially, Jake's relationship with Norm was not good, but it improves over time, and Jake learns a lot about the Na'vi language from him. Jake learns about the flow of energy and the spirit of animals every day. He asks Moat to allow Grace to enter the village. This was the first time Grace had entered the village since her school was closed. A strange feeling gradually develops between Jake and Neytiri. Jake tries every day to understand the deep connection the Na'vi have with the forest. Due to long hours of connection, he gradually becomes weaker and thinner, eating much less. Grace emphasizes that if he eats during the connection, the body under the control of his mind is nourished, but his real body continues to weaken. Jake asks Grace what happened to her school. Grace says that after the school was destroyed, Neytiri's sister, Silwanen, stopped going to school because she was upset about its destruction. One day, she and a few other young hunters painted themselves and set a bulldozer on fire. The soldiers chased them and killed Silwanen right in front of Neytiri, then shot at the others, and after that, the children never returned to school. Grace, being a scientist, does not like to act emotionally, but she cared for those children because she had spent more than 10 years of her life at that school, and all the children called her Sanok, meaning mother. Jake makes a proper hunt and is ready to find his own Ikran. He goes with Neytiri, Sully, and a few others to a place where the Ikrans are. They pass through a difficult path, and at Sully's insistence, Jake, who was the least skilled, had to go first. He listens to Neytiri's advice that each Ikran trying to kill him is actually choosing him, so he should tame them. He faces failure several times and becomes discouraged, but he finally succeeds and manages to tame his Ikran. In addition to taming the Ikran, Jake also excels in hunting and can properly follow the customs of the Na'vi. Neytiri shows Jake a creature called the Great Lenopteryx, which is a symbol of greatness and power for the Na'vi, and the only one who has managed to tame this creature was Neytiri's great-grandfather, who became highly respected among his people after doing so, and they still speak well of him even after his death. The colonel thanks Jake for the information he has provided and says he is ready to keep his promise and asks him to leave the place. Realizing that a massacre awaits the blue people, Jake asks the colonel for some time to move them away from their home, the Tree of Souls, as he is close to gaining their full trust. He ultimately gets a little more time from the colonel. Jake becomes a member of the people and gains their full trust. Jake and Neytiri go to a sacred tree within Awa that is the voice of their ancestors. Now Jake is an Omaticaya and can choose a woman. There, he confesses his love for Neytiri, chooses her, and Neytiri chooses him too. The next day, Neytiri realizes the military is attacking the village, but Jake, who has disconnected, doesn't move for a while but then reconnects. Jake tries to dissuade the military from attacking but fails. Sully becomes the war leader for the Na'vi. Grace connects to her avatar and goes to the village, asking them not to enter the war and to move from their home. There, Sully realizes that Jake and Neytiri have chosen each other as partners, and both confirm it. Jake pleads with Sully not to attack the Sky People because many Omaticaya will die. But Sully refuses and attacks Jake. At that moment, the colonel goes to Connection Center 26 and cuts off all connections. When Sully sees Jake's avatar fall, he intends to kill him, but Neytiri prevents it. Grace and Jake try to convince the colonel and Parker not to attack because the village people will be killed. Besides, they do their utmost to preserve their beliefs and stand against them. There is also a strong electromagnetic energy between the Na'vi trees. The colonel and Parker mock them and refuse to believe. The colonel shows one of Jake's recorded videos in which he reports that the Na'vi will never leave their home. They decide to kill the people and want to drive the Na'vi away with gas as the first step. Jake and Grace ask for an hour to negotiate with the Na'vi. They go to the village people and Jake asks them to leave because the military intends to attack. Jake confesses that he has been spying for the military. The tribe and Neytiri are disappointed in Jake, and they arrest him and Grace. The Na'vi cannot withstand the military, and after the incendiary bombs are thrown, they are forced to retreat. Moat frees Jake and Grace and asks them to help if they consider themselves part of them. One of the soldiers, seeing the savagery of the colonel's team, turns his fighter around and withdraws from the operation. The military destroys the village, sets the sacred tree on fire, and the Na'vi become refugees. The tribe's leader is killed and tells his daughter Neytiri to take care of their people. Meanwhile, the military pulls the connection cable, and Norm, Jake, and Grace are arrested. The soldier who had withdrawn from the war, along with a few others, rescues the prisoners. They leave one person named Max behind so they can gather information from the military. During the escape, the colonel shoots at them, and Grace gets hit and is wounded. They lift the connection center and take it to a safer place with a fighter aircraft. Jake needs the help of the Na'vi to save Grace's life and decides to regain their trust. Jake decides to tame the great Lenopteryx or Toric Macto, the most fearsome bird in the sky. When he does this and goes to the Na'vi, he becomes a sacred and respected person to them. Neytiri fears for the fate of her people in this war. Jake tells Sully that he is his brother and ready to serve his people. Jake says that Grace is dying and needs the help of Awa. They take Grace to Awa, but she is very weak. Grace, who had not believed in Awa before, confesses that she has been with Awa and believes in its existence. Ultimately, because her injuries are deep and there is not enough time, she dies and goes to Awa. Jake talks to the people and says that the Sky People have sent a message that they will take whatever they want and no one can stop them. He says that now they must tell the other tribes to come and join them to show the Sky People that this is their land. All the people unite under the command of Toric Macto. The military, considering the expansion of the number and territory of the Na'vi, decide to create terror and want to destroy the Na'vi's sacred and protected place by their gods, the Tree of Souls. Jake goes to Awa and asks for help. The people stand against the military attack, and the Na'vi destroy several military fighters. The military also kills many Na'vi with firebombing and gunfire. The colonel explodes the fighter of the person who refused to massacre the people along with himself. The colonel's fighter attacks Sully and severely injures him. At this moment, when the Na'vi are about to be defeated, Awa hears Jake's voice and sends help for the Na'vi. Jake prevents the military from attacking the sacred place, and the colonel, with a powerful robot he designed for himself, goes to fight Neytiri. In this fight, just when Neytiri is trapped, Jake comes to her aid and engages with the colonel. The colonel heads towards the connection center and wants to destroy everyone. He removes Jake Sully from the connection pod and leaves him without a mask. Neytiri, who was trapped under the body of a dead creature, saves herself and attacks the colonel with an arrow and kills him. Neytiri finds Jake's real body, puts the mask on his face, and saves him. The Na'vi win, and Sully, who is dying, chooses Jake as the leader of the tribe. They save the tribe and expel all the sky people from their land, and the great sorrow comes to an end. And Jake continues his life in the body of his avatar,